Hello, everyone. This is the Free American Press with your host, AlexHorat. Before we begin, if you could please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, that would be great. Today, we're having Robert Kientz on the show, and Robert is a believer in Austrian economics and sound money with 30 years of experience in the finance and tech spaces. Currently, he runs the Freedom Report. Hello, Robert. We're really thankful to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so what made you become a libertarian and a follower of Austrian economics?
The story goes, I was working full time for Ernst& Young back in the day as a consultant auditor, that type of thing. And I got laid off at the height of the financial crisis, February 1st, 2009, which actually, if you go back and look at it, that was the worst day. And then the day after I got laid off, it started getting better.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? I couldn't have made it one more day. But the weird thing was I was working for Ernst& Young. I had this big project. I had brought in more revenue as a senior associate than a lot of senior managers for the entire southwest part of the country. So I had produced, I'd done my job, but I didn't have a CPA. And when the company goes through a recession, a lot of the big four will fire everybody that doesn't have a CPA. And by and large, the reason for that is they need CPAs to sign off on stuff. So CPAs are kind of like the golden goose. And even though I had produced, they were projecting that they weren't going to need as much work that I worked on. And it sucked because of what I'd done. I'd excelled at my position. I'd done all the things they tell you to do. I went to school, kept my nose clean, got a good job with a big company. And through no fault of my own, I got laid off. And what made it worse was my son had just been born 3 months earlier, my second child, and we had just bought a house. And I'm looking at this going, you have got to be kidding me. Well, how am I going to support my family? And I got really mad, to be honest with you, because I'd done everything that I've been taught since I was a kid. And, I didn't have any black marks on my record, no criminal record, never been fired. Like I said, good performance. And then I'm sitting there facing a dilemma that many people, I think, now are facing when they look at this economy, which is they don't have enough work, they don't have enough money, they don't see good prospects, and people are worried about their situation. But back then I was just surprised, and I'd gone through the 2000 tech crisis, and that was a recession, and it was tough, but it was nothing like 2008. 2008 was as close to a Great Depression as you could get without being a Great Depression. It wasn't quite as bad as what my parents went through in the 30s, but it was bad enough that there was a lot of pain going around, right? And so I just began studying economics. And through school, I had a bachelor's degree in business with a concentration in MIS. So it was a hybrid computer and business degree. So I took a lot of finance and accounting courses, economics. And, you know, when I got laid off, I was like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. I knew that the economics I was taught was not the right economics. And on top of that, the project I'd work on that brought in so much money was a mortgage servicing project. So I saw all the problems with the mortgage industry before the Lehman bust. And I was trying to tell people, like, I don't think, I wasn't an expert in mortgages back then. I hadn't researched it, but I was like, well, wait a minute. If this company I'm working on is having these problems, and they were deep, bad problems, is the rest of the market like that? And what's that going to mean? Because you're talking $1 trillion market, right?
Right.
And long story short, I just began researching and I came across Austrian economics. And when I read through it, it made more sense. When I look back at 2008, 2009, that made more sense to me than when I learned in school. And I thought, aha, I'm on to something. And me just having this incredibly curious mind that God has gifted me with, I just kept going. Like I didn't stop. And I wrote a book. Why I wrote a book, I have no idea. It'd never been published. Nobody knew who I was, and I self-published it. And then I just began writing for Seeking Alpha. I wrote for a bunch of other places, and eventually the rest is history. I got on social media, and now I do crazy stuff like social media. And it was just it's born through experience. It's being through two recessions, one being really nasty, and because there were consequences for me with my family, I was motivated. I was motivated to say, why is this happening? Why are we having these problems? And I was in my mid 30s, and I felt like I can't take care of when you're a guy and you have a family and a wife and stuff like that happens, it's tough. I mean, you're like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why can't I take care of my family? Why can't I have a job? And I did get a job. I ended up getting a job in Forex and in finance and got some certifications, learned a little bit about finance for a while before I went back I found a job in my career field. And that actually made it worse for me because when I got certifications in like Forex and commodities and in insurance and, Series 7 investments, I looked at this and said, why would I ever recommend any of this crap after what I went through? And I just sort of went on this campaign of nothing that they taught me in school was true or correct. And I've got to find out the truth. And I've just been sort of a truth seeker ever since. And I think when you go through something like that, it's easier to break out of whatever the programming is that you had in school or whatever the narrative is that's on the television because you're like, that's not correct. I was in the middle of it and you're not telling the truth. And whether or not they understood it or whether they're lying, I don't know. But the media was lying, whether they knew or not. And when you go through an actual experience like that, and there are actual consequences to what happens to you, um, like something clicked off of me where like I'm not letting this go, and it took me in a completely different direction than I've been going in life. And I'm thankful for it. Sometimes learning all the bad stuff is not super easy, but it does sort of prepare you for life, and I wouldn't change it. It was a bad experience. It turned into a good one because it educated me and allowed me to come and speak to other people, which is a blessing. But that's kind of how it happened for me. It was through some sort of tragedy and me looking at the world and saying, what they're telling us is not true. It is not true.
Yeah, I think that's pretty eye-opening how you found that out. I think the public school systems, the TV, it's all
Mhm.
pushing the government narrative. There are all these corporations listening to the government with private-public partnerships. So I think you losing your job as the catalyst to find out what's really going wrong. I think that's great that you found the truth and you've been researching. And something that most people aren't willing to do is do their research. So I think
Mhm.
that's great that you did your own self-research. So you're a part of Citizens for Sound Money. Can you tell the audience about the organization and some projects they're working on?
Yep. So Citizens for Sound Money was started, I guess, maybe about 4 years ago by a good friend, Jim Forsyth, who's now, may he rest in peace. He's passed. He was a former Air Force pilot, an engineer by trade, and just an all-around good guy who, at some point, started to see problems in the world and left a six-figure job doing these great projects for the U.S. government to jump into educating people, starting a nonprofit, used all of his own money, and really because he'd been like he was a political organizer for Ron Paul, ran his New Hampshire campaign. He was a senator in New Hampshire, and it really affected him what he saw. And so he said, I got to do something about this. And he put his money where his mouth is. I mean, not a lot of people really do this. Not a lot of people give up a six-figure job to go try to help people in a nonprofit. And he started silverback precious metals, making, silver coins and bars. And he just really got into it. And I met him years ago. Well, I'd been online with him. I had him on my program a couple of times, and I knew he was doing something. I didn't quite fully get it. And then I met him one year at New Orleans Investment Conference, and it kind of clicked, and we became friends. And I became friends with him and Ian, some other people, and eventually they sort of invited me in to kind of help them do just promotional work to put them on and to talk about sound money. And that clicked with Austrian economics, gold, silver, and sound money. That all clicked with me, and so we formed a bond. And unfortunately, when he passed away a couple of years ago, there was an opportunity to open up for me to serve on the board, which I did for about a year and a half. I'm no longer on the board, but I am the Texas political campaign manager, lobbyist manager. So because I live here in Texas, so I'm still working for Citizens. I just have a little bit of a reduced role because I have a full-time job. But it was a wonderful experience. And so, real quickly, in a nutshell, what we do, we work on legislation. So we passed a gold legal tender bill in Florida. We assisted Patrick Holland and Missouri Freedmen Initiative in Missouri. Uh, we're involved in Texas, though that wasn't our bill, and I don't particularly like that bill in particular, the way it turned out. So next year we're going to start campaigning for some change. It's good that Texas passed a legal tender bill, but it needs change. It basically favors certain vendors over others, and it's what we call rent seeking, and then it benefits certain companies. That's a hint often as to why legislation is passed. So we want to make it a little bit more open to not vendor specific. We want to make sure that the free market can go in there and compete in Texas, kind of like Obamacare. You don't want only one option for healthcare because it spikes the cost and it's not good. We want multiple options. So we want to go fix Texas. And we do legislation, we do lobbying, we do a lot of educational stuff for people to learn about sound money. In the states that have passed sound money legislation, C4SM is organizing these community events where you can spend your gold and silver in all of its forms and to educate the public. We've been out to Pork Fest in New Hampshire. We've done
Okay.
tons of those sort of meetings. We've met with governors and senators, and we there is a docu-series that's going to come out next year. I'm not supposed to talk too much about it on TV, but we went around the world to 4 or 5 different continents and we're interviewing people around the world. So, and C4SM has two other independent sort of affiliated branches that started on their own. We have one in Israel and one in Turkey, and they're just people in those countries that looked at what we were doing in the States and they said, we want that here. We want sound money. So it's truly gone international. And it's just a bunch of dudes, just everyday people who got together and said, we want to do something positive for people. We were seeing all the problems and they were getting worse. You see the debt levels and all that. And, people think that C4SM is some sort of rich organization with big donors, and we're not. A lot of us put our own money into it. We raise money through grassroots efforts. And as far as I know, C4SM is the only nonprofit in the United States working to pass sound money legislation and educate people on sound money. All of the other organizations that do this are backed by financial interests. We have no financial interests other than helping people. We're a nonprofit. So we are really working for the people to help with things like education, combating inflation, providing people choices so that they have better choices to manage their budget with more sound money that's not as bad as the dollar losing value every year. And the feedback we got from the states is they like it because the states want to use gold and silver because what it does is it offsets inflation, wrecking their capital projects budgets like schools and bridges and roads where they can't finish those projects because of inflation. So there's a lot of support. Texas and Florida are big 800-pound gorillas that now have passed this legislation. What is it now? 11 or 12 states have done it. So we're over 1/5 of the union. And if you look at population wise, we're bigger because we have big states. So now this is becoming an issue where I think what's going to happen is the federal government is going to take notice and the states are asserting their power. Bill of Rights Amendment 10, all power not specifically granted to the federal government falls down to the states and the people. And so we represent the people. We work with the states because of Amendment 10 to combine our power, the people through the legislative power of the states, to support people's right to use sound money, which, by the way, is still in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. Gold and silver were never removed as money. So people that think that you can only use dollar bills, that's not technically correct. Now, there are some federal statutes that make it hard to use gold and silver specifically as legal tender that I think are unconstitutional. But the way you get around that is work with the states to assert states' rights through Bill of Rights Amendment 10 and to take back what is granted in the Constitution. And it is needed. We've had this big debate in the sound money community. Is it even needed? It's in the Constitution. But if you look at the statutory laws and the way that the feds prosecute anybody trying to use anything other than federal fiat notes, you do have to have state legislation. We've had many constitutional experts, state experts, talk about this and say, yes, this is something that's needed. So to clear up some misconceptions in the sound money community, you do need to work at the state level to reaffirm the Constitution because of other federal statutes and precedent set in the court system that we believe is unconstitutional. But regardless, we do it to re-edify people's rights through state legislative action. And eventually what's going to happen is when we get enough states, it's going to force the conversation up to the federal level and eventually, I think, the Supreme Court, where it's ultimately going to be decided what is money in the United States. And that's why education and programs like yours are key, is to let the people know why this is important. Because when this comes up to the Supreme Court, we need popular support. Because if we don't, you're going to get fiat money. And when fiat money dies in a few years, you're going to get CBDCs, and that's controlled money. It'll be controlled by AI. And if you look at what's happening in China and other places where they're implementing this, it's bad news. No privacy, no control of your own budgets. They can lock you out of things like buying groceries, having internet, getting on the train, that kind of social control system we don't want in the United States. So it goes beyond just, a couple of us gold guys trying to get gold as money. That's not the motivation. The motivation is to keep tyranny out of the financial system, to maintain the rights of the Constitution and maintain the rights of the people. And so it requires specific and dedicated legislative action to get there. And that's really what Citizens for Sound Money is. And again, the only nonprofit that I'm aware of fighting for the rights of citizens with no obvious internal profit incentive to us.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's great you're fighting on the state level because the federal level right now, I think, is too hard. If we focus on the state level, we can get things through, especially in states that are more receptive to sound money. And I think you're right. I think sound money will keep us out of the slavery system and the hidden tax of inflation, basically
Mhm.
gripping our currency, making it worthless and making it worth less every single day. So I think it'll actually protect people's assets. So I think that's so great that you're doing that. So you touched a little bit about AI and digital IDs. So can you
Mhm.
tell the audience your thoughts on digital IDs and when will the US most likely mandate it?
Well, if you look at digital IDs, in the US, it started as a real ID, and it started in Texas has them. And we knew eventually it was going to go digital. And what real ID is, you have to give a biometric in order to get your ID. And a lot of people are proponents of that because of citizenship and validating citizenship and voting. And that's great. But once you give up your biometrics and everybody has their social security, like you can't, like they can track you anywhere. And when they turn that digital, they can connect it to things like digital currencies and AI, which allows them through push button to do whatever they want, whether it's constitutional or not. And that's a scary system that nobody really wants to see. What has kept America free for so long is the federal system of states and people's rights versus the federal government. It's been that they couldn't push a button and, you know, uh, mass print the money. There had to at least be a vote in Congress about the debt. And it was a slow system of destruction in the US, which now is turning into a quick system of destruction. And not only is it a quick system of destruction, but it's going to be run by AI bots, which have no soul, are not human, have no care for humans. And it's going to be a set of stored procedures that say, if this, then this. And the AI is not going to care about you. And so the rights and freedoms, ultimately, money allows you the right to move around, to buy food, to do all that kind of stuff. Where you don't have those rights and freedoms, when they take away your economic rights and freedoms, you start to lose your political rights and freedoms, your ability to travel, that kind of thing. And then they can link that to every other thing, like your ability to get on a plane, your ability to earn income and be an employee. It just gets into a very nasty sort of system. And this is something that's been coming down the pike. Now, specifically for digital IDs, originally a friend of mine came to me who runs Daylight Freedom Foundation, Aaron, and he said, Rob, it's 11 states in the US and 17 countries. Well, now it's 24 countries and 14 states only in the last month that have passed digital ID. And the way they did it was essentially laws on the books were allowing for things like real ID, and they just digitized it. And in Taiwan, for example, if you don't get a digital ID, you can't eat, you can't work, and you can't travel. So
Wow.
basically, that forces everybody, unless you want to starve to death and be homeless and beg, to get this ID, and then the government can basically control everything that you do. In Mexico, they're forcing every single citizen to give up all of their biometrics. In Australia, they're monitoring online communications and tying it to your biometrics. So you're never going to have the ability of free speech, essentially. And if you look at what's happening in Britain, they're arresting people for posting on social media if they want to protest. Because if you look at Great Britain, they don't have the same freedom of speech rights in a constitution that we do. And so when you combine all those things together, along with the rollout of CBDCs, what you have is this really oppressive system run by a soulless computer who doesn't care about you, that's going to enforce rules that take away your rights whenever they want to. It's a push button complete control system, not just monetary, but your ability to do anything. And that's not what I call freedom, and that's not what I call pursuit of happiness. That's not what I call ability of people to survive without complete government control. And once they start instituting things like AI and universal basic income, and they get rid of money. And by the way, Musk was out there talking today. There's a clip on Twitter today, rolling around Twitter, of Elon Musk saying, AI is going to make all the decisions. Humans will make none. And he's a technocrat. He's a self-avowed technocrat and a transhumanist. And he thinks computers can make better decisions. And Yeah, so as I was saying, it's a total control system, and it's not what people want, and people just aren't really paying attention. People pay attention to college football. People pay attention to the political theater. And there are lots of important things going on politically, lots of important things going on culturally that we're very um, uh, fortunate as Americans to be able to experience, to have this American experience, and how spoiled we are. When I travel the world and I look at what people have in their lifestyle, we're still the most spoiled nation on earth. And I don't think that people quite realize, the repercussions of all this. And really, we just need to grab people's attention and kind of shake them and say, look, this is something you need to pay attention to. And that's why education is the ultimate importance. All the things we do at C4SAM, the legislation and all that stuff's important. Educating people so that they understand what's on the docket, what's on the plan, so they can make their own decisions is the best way. Um, Growing your own food, having some gold and silver, or some other way of having money, having skill sets, and then doing things like telling your representatives, I don't want to put up with all this stuff. This is not, we have to fight back. And we're one of the few countries that has ability to fight back, defend ourselves, all of these things, all of these that we take for granted. And unless people understand that, and unless people know how to utilize those skills of, and fighting peacefully, by the way, fighting peacefully, going down to your state house, educating your friends, then I'm afraid we're going to lose all those rights. And, if you look at the story of mankind, for the vast majority of mankind, there have been tyrants and slaves. There hasn't been a middle class. There hasn't been all of these freedoms that we take for granted the last 250 years. And we could lose it all, only for the last 250 years, since we had our Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation leading to the Constitution, where all of these other countries copied that model. Most of humanity has been living in slavery. And so if you look at 6,000 years of history, only 250 has man really truly had any sort of true freedom. So it's been a blip on the radar. And that blip can go away. And, people, it's hard when you've been on the earth like me for 50 years and you've lived in this free society. It's hard to understand what it used to be several generations ago. But just look back at our history. Look at the abolition of slavery. Look at the Civil War. Look at the Native American plight. Look at the 1812 War. Look at the fight for independence. Look at, what the Aztecs and Mayans did in subjugating, other native cultures. I mean, that's a part of the culture of North America. And going all the way back to the Middle Ages and all of that kind of stuff. We could easily slip back into that world. And I think people just don't truly understand it because they haven't lived in it. But all you have to do is understand history and how important it is to make sure that we maintain our rights and to do it peacefully. The key is to do it peacefully. We don't want to incite the government to come down on us. What we want to do is do it peacefully, and we want to adhere to the laws on the books is essentially what we want to do. And that's, basically what I'm fighting for and what a lot of people in the Sound Money movement are fighting for.
Yeah, I definitely think the digital ID is just going to make the whole world one big North Korea, even worse than North Korea, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So I think your thoughts on fighting it and stopping it here in the United States before it happens is really important. And so you talked a little bit about AI. So what
Mhm.
percentage of the job market do you think will be taken over by AI by next year, and what impact will it cause on the economy?
Well, I wrote an article on my Substack that a lot of jobs are currently being replaced by AI. I'm not going to be able to bring it up on my computer, but a lot of jobs are being replaced. It started with like software development. Now it's moving to things like accounting and security. Basically, anything in which a person is sitting in a computer and has a set of logical procedures. Things like the trades. I mean, if you're a plumber or electrician, you still need a human to do that. AI is not going to run cable if you're building something. So it's actually going to force people to go back to the trades. And it was interesting. I was talking with my kids a little while ago over text. My local school district is closing two elementaries and a junior high, and there are six overall school districts in North Texas doing similar things because of demographic issues and people going to homeschooling. And one of the solutions is, in addition to closing campuses, is they're like, we don't need as many college grads. So they're going to reenact trade programs all the way down to junior high to high school to train people how to fix cars, to train people how to weld, to do woodworking, to plumbing and electric, because that's what we need. So those types of roles are going to stick around at least for a while. I don't know how much entrepreneurism there'll be, whether you're working for the government, but at least you'll have a role. But if you're doing things sitting at home doing a computer, anything that they can program a computer to do in your place, like a set of logical procedures, accounting, all that kind of stuff, you may be losing your job. Certainly, you already see it in the warehouses with like Amazon with the robots. Anything that's easy labor, or that can be automated, human action automated, like surgeries and things. Even a lot of that's going to go, and they're going to have robots in homes. Robots in homes are going to cook, clean, prepare dinner, stuff like that. And so that's going to take away a lot of jobs, childcare. Um, and people, I was watching Twitter and some videos are coming up on Twitter, specifically what they're doing in China with robots. And they're doing this massive, like million robot release. And these robots are so realistic and they have personalities. Like you can talk to them and they'll smile and laugh and they understand context of what you're saying. Not just the words you're saying, they understand context. And so these robots are going to replace people in customer service roles and things like that. In fact, I have a friend that's developing AI bots that you can put on your website if you need customer service, and they're fully capable of almost full interaction like a human. So customer service roles, call center roles, I mean, it's endless the types of jobs that are going to disappear, and it's going to completely eliminate the middle class, and it's going to lead to the haves and have-nots, and there are going to be a lot more have-nots than are haves. And it's not going to take that long. There was a Google developer that got fired because he said Lambda, one of their AI projects, was sentient. There was somebody who worked for OpenAI who quit OpenAI and complained that OpenAI was being programmed to steal assets in the financial system and do things like that, and people didn't know. And it was not a beneficial AI, and he ends up dead sometime later.
It's pretty
Is that coincidence? I
scary.
have no idea. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there are signs that AI is starting to become strong enough to make a sizable dent. And Verizon just announced, it was either today or yesterday, they're laying off 13,000 people,
Right.
percent of their 100,000 person workforce. I used to work for Verizon. I worked there when they had 120. Now they're going to be down to 87. And then we're talking, the new CEO, who used to be the CEO of PayPal and also used to work in telecom before PayPal, said, "Well, we're just letting our employees know AI is here and we don't need as many of you." And he said it right there in Verizon, the biggest layoff in Verizon, single layoff in Verizon's history. AI has a lot to do with it. It's in telecommunications now. Why do you need educated workers who are expensive and need benefits and take sick days off when you can just put AI in there to build, maintain, and run the network, and do back office functions like accounting and tax and all that kind of audit and all that kind of stuff. It's here right now, and it's not only that people want sound money. It's not only that people want to get active and say, "Hey, this is not really beneficial to humanity." It's that people want to begin thinking, how do I prepare for this? What career do I want to have? How do I deal with the fact that maybe without a job? How do I take care of myself? There are a lot of considerations going on with AI and how many jobs it's going to take over.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think this rise of AI is the wave of the future? There's nothing we can do about it, or do you think we can fight it for keep human jobs?
It all depends on the people. I mean, it's always up to the people. If people want to fight back, they can. I think once you kind of open Pandora's box, you know that AI is going to be there. And certainly, I don't know that you can close that box fully, but humans still have control. And as long as we have control, we can adjust, we can pass laws, we can shut it down. And I'm not one that thinks AI is going to become fully sentient in the super immediate future. There's a lot. I spent 30 years in tech. There's a lot that has to go into that. It's still just a fancy set of stored procedures that is very quick to try to guess the next logical outcome, but it's not the human brain. So there's still an advantage. Humans still have the advantage, but people have to be aware, they have to speak up, they have to get active. And it's not just watching a video, it's going down to your state house, it's talking to your friends. It's a lot of things that you can do, just like fighting AI is the same thing as fighting bad money. The steps are all the same. You just have to be aware of what's going on And then you pick something that you can do and you do that. And if everybody does a little bit, then it's very easy to get change. It's the fact that most people sit there and don't do anything and don't pay attention. Really, it's human complacency really is the biggest threat. AI is rising because of human complacency around it. And a lot of people see it as beneficial. They play around with um, Grok, they play around with Gemini, all these tools in ChatGPT, and they think, oh, it's great. It makes my life easier. But when you do that, you're training AI to replace your thought patterns because when you're interacting with AI, you're teaching it what's important to you, the things that you need to know, and you're putting in commands, and it says, oh, great, you just taught me how to do this. I'm going to store that in there. And you're transferring your human knowledge to the AI. So it's not just that you're using AI to benefit your life, you're teaching AI to be your replacement. That's the key. So all these people on AI all the time, it's like, well, you might want to be kind of careful. You're training your replacement, essentially.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It just seems really scary that whoever's got control of this AI and these robots, they're going to be the masters of the world. If it's
Mhm.
not small companies, I doubt they're going to let it be small. I'm sure they're just going to have big monopolies on all this and just rule the world that way. And that's just putting us closer to a technocracy and them having control of our lives forever. And then we won't be able to do anything about it once they have robot armies and robot policemen and everything of that nature. So it seems like we need to stop it soon, or it could really, if it's not a lot of small companies and competition, it's really going to be a huge issue. Uh, and it's just pretty scary.
Yeah, I think it will be. We still have time, so I don't want to freak anybody out. But it's something people need to be aware of. You need to educate yourself on it, learn something, and then decide where you can get involved. And the thing is, it's not a math game. It's not that we can't do anything. It's that people just need to pay attention. If people pay attention, and they band together and they join organizations like Citizens for Sound Money or whatever, you can affect any change you want. It's the apathy, like I said, which is the biggest risk. It's always been the biggest risk to humans is apathy. If the people realize that they have control and who they are and who made them, then these things aren't going to matter. But people are convinced that they can't do anything, and that's what allows this march into programmable currency and this AI universe and full control by technocrats to occur. But if we realize that we don't have to give in and we don't have to give our consent, and if we organize, we have much more power, then that's the answer. It's always been the answer throughout human history. Now, the question is, are humans going to figure that out this time? I mean, who knows, right? We have the internet. That's one working on our side. It's kind of like the modern day printing press. It at least gives us information. But the question is, will humans band together to save themselves from that level of oppression, financial oppression and technocratic oppression? And, I think in many cases they will. I can't tell you, I can tell you where we're going. The worst case scenario is like a total control technocratic sort of one government system that people had talked about for forever. I mean, you've had dystopian science fiction novels written on it for 100 years. Ray Bradbury, right? It's not conspiracy when science fiction writers have been writing it for 100 years. And if you go to your movieplex or you go to Netflix, I mean, half of the movies you see are dystopian now. We have this cultural awareness of what's going on. And oh, it's great. We got a movie. Now, what do you do about it? And I think the awareness is starting to come out. Now it's more about, okay, well, voice your opinion, go do something about it. And that will be the key as to whether we survive it or not. And just remember, you have the key. There's an old Eagles song. A lot of people don't realize they have the key to their own freedom. I'm summarizing, right? They don't realize they have the key to their own lock, their own chains. And we do. We just have to believe that, and then we have to act on it.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing, I think they want to replace people with machines, like you said, especially in jobs and stuff. We're seeing
Hmm.
the Western world and Japan especially losing population. The only reason why the Western world is getting population increases through immigration. So, do you think this trend is going to continue population decline, or do you think it'll start stabilizing?
I saw a map and a projection about Europe in that in about 15 to 20 years, it would no longer be uh, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It would be primarily Muslim and other. So Europe is very quickly, its culture is disappearing. I think people can see that on the news and social media, what's going on there. And there has been if you've been on Twitter in the last month, there's been an absolute massive amount of postings from government and others on uh, Islam, on immigration in general, Sharia law, these mega complexes. Detroit essentially has been taken over already. It's a Sharia run city. I mean, they have Sharia mayors. New York now has a mayor in favor of Sharia law. So a lot of US cities have already been turned into basically small Islamic zones. And it's happening in Texas, my home state. I think the news came out and said we had 3.8 million Islamic people here. And I'm not trying to discriminate, but a lot of the radicals are here in which, and you can see them and they say it like, we want to get rid of freedom, anything American, we want to institute Sharia law. So it's going on in Europe, it's going on in America. But you also have other, the mass immigration, just from an economic standpoint, the mass immigration is destroying the economic system. You cannot assimilate that many people that quickly and have the economy hold it. And it's crashing the economy, absolutely. I think I saw another Twitter post out where if you just illegal immigrants, all the immigrants here illegally, regardless of where they came from, if you got rid of them, we would have an excess of housing and an excess of jobs. And there
Yeah.
have been two videos of Hispanic owned businesses that said they have no employees because of ICE rates. And we're like, okay, well, if your employees are documented, why would they leave and not work there? So there are a lot of Hispanic-run businesses that thrive off the cheap labor of immigrants to compete, and they're doing it to compete in the marketplace. But now the ICE is doing raids across the U.S. A lot of these businesses are going out of business because their workers have left, and so they have no customers. I mean, the amount of illegal immigration, I think, is much greater than what people think. And on one hand, it did allow cheap labor to build things, but it's also hollowed out the middle class. And so I think the net effect is that the middle class is basically broken at this point. The economy is broken. And until you address that in some meaningful way to allow a meaningful immigration process that allows people to come in and follow a process and then we can handle it and they can culturally assimilate and get educated and it doesn't just break the system and you don't have these antagonistic elements of these MS-13 gangs and radical Islamists and radicals from all over the world. I mean, you talk about Ecuador having this massive prison complex for these violent criminals where US is just pouring people in. We're basically just punting these criminals that have broken laws already 48 times in the US back to where they came from or someplace similar. And you also notice that people are getting lit on fire in the subways and people are
Yeah.
getting
It's crazy.
shot. There was a couple of people that recently got shot at a public game at a public event. It like you can't go out to a high school football game anymore. It's not safe. And that's new for a lot of people who grew up in especially rural America where you could leave your doors open. You can't do that anymore. It's just too much too fast. Immigration's okay. At some point, a lot of people are immigrants to this country, but it has to be done in a certain way. And you want to keep the radicals out who hate you. Because if they hate you and you get them in positions of power, all of a sudden you're in trouble, right? And that's true of any culture.
Yeah, it definitely seems like what's going on right now with most white countries, it seems like the white race is definitely being in the decline. It almost seems like they want to get rid of the white race and change it to a Muslim, like you're saying, and all those other different cultures. So I think that's definitely a problem. So getting into a different topic, back to gold and silver, what do you think prices will be for gold and silver be priced at this time next year?
I'm not gonna make a call on that just because they're at all-time high. They keep hitting new all-time highs, and I just did a video last night on we're in a consolidation pattern, but Saxo Bank analysts, TD Securities, a lot of these big banks, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, predicting much higher prices because they're seeing what's going on in the economy. And I think we're very close to getting that official recession. And I will say, since 2009, we never came out of a recession. It was papered over by a lot of money printing, which, by the way, never fixed the job issue, created massive inflation around the world, not just the United States. and has basically broken our financial system. And when this one comes, all the can kicking we've done since 1971, we took the dollar off the gold standard, and especially through the tech crisis of 2000, the Great Recession of 2008 through 2010, all of that's going to come, to a head at one time. And gold eventually is going to revalue. And I also did an article on Twitter, and I'll do a video on it, where if you look at the gold price and oil, gold separated from oil in 2009. And at the beginning of 2009, about the same time I got laid off, the height of the financial crisis. And gold used to be a cost input to gold. I'm sorry, oil used to be a cost input to gold mines. And gold was a gold price was some sort of derivative of energy price. And it's not anymore. Now oil is priced in gold, and everything's going to be priced in gold. And all fiat currencies will be priced in gold. And when the fiat breaks, the CBDCs are backed up by gold through Basel III and all of these, regulations. So the central banks are already building up their gold reserves. They've been buying gold fastest pace in history in the last 12 years since 2013. And I think last year was there more gold than ever, even when we were all on the gold standard. And gold is quickly going to become the basis of the financial system in terms of valuation. But the people are going to use these CBDCs. And, that's not an ideal situation from a value perspective. So it's not the price in dollars that gold's going to go to. It's the fact that everything's being priced in gold now, and that's on the charts. Gold is destroyed since 2000. Gold has obliterated the U.S. stock markets, even through new all-time highs, and people don't know that. And it's true. You just graph it. You go to TradingView or Yahoo Finance, put gold against the major indices. It takes 3 minutes since 2000, and gold's beating the tar of it. But now, and not only is gold outperforming as an asset class, it's become money. And so when you chart gold to anything, gold is worth more, or what it's saying is the dollar has destroyed value, and gold is now sucking all that inflation into its price. And everything, all commodities and all products around the world are being priced in gold. And that's why countries are de-dollarizing, because the dollar is no longer the de facto currency. It's below 50% of global worldwide, forex reserves. So by definition, it's no longer the world reserve currency because it's less than 50% of held foreign currencies in foreign accounts. And gold is quickly becoming what everybody measures it to. And we're also having this debate on Twitter today. How many thousand tons of gold does China have squirreled away? And I said at least 25,000 based upon production and trade statistics where they keep it all in house. Some people are saying 33,000. Well, it's a lot more than the US has. And so China's going to use gold to back their currency and to back their economy.
Yeah.
So I think everything's being priced in gold now, and so the prices become irrelevant. The only question is, do you have some? Everything else is completely irrelevant. I don't care what the dollar price is anymore. And I talk about it obviously because in relative terms, you compare what it used to be in purchasing power. But really what you're going to do now is you're going to take a basket of commodities or a basket of groceries or a car or a house or a barrel of oil, and you're going to price it in gold. And that's going to tell you what the true value is. Gold is now the underpinning of the global economy. The central banks know it. They're not officially saying it, but they know it. And their actions speak louder than words. And asset prices are definitive on that. Gold has become money again. It is officially money again. So if you want to maintain purchasing power, you want to stay out of that electronic CBDC system, gold and its little brother silver are really the only way to do it. It's not Bitcoin, I'm sorry. Bitcoin's been taken over. It's been hijacked. Roger Ver had a good book on that. I went to Bitcoin conference in Nashville, was it last year or the year before, where the lead developer came out and said Bitcoin can't serve as currency unless we fix these problems. And he was talking about how they've turned Bitcoin into some asset class and not a currency, and it's not what it was meant to be. And let's just say there is a sketchy history of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin doesn't have any true value. It's just numbers on a computer. And it's even though the US government is using Bitcoin in its strategic reserve, Bitcoin's crashing because people realize it doesn't have true value. And it's a bubble asset. It goes up and down, but it trades per the NASDAQ. It's like a tech stock. It's not money. It's an ethereal, non-physical asset that's worth whatever fiat dollars people want to put into it. But as fiat explodes, what happens to Bitcoin? It has no value. What are you going to value Bitcoin in? Gold, which is tangible. Gold, which has been used for 5,000 years. Gold. Bitcoin in itself is basically a type of vaporware. If you ever worked in technology, it's vaporware.
Yeah,
So everything is going to be measured in gold.
yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, and I think that definitely provides a great outlook for gold in the future. And
Hmm.
I agree. I think the U.S. Government created Bitcoin. We don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto was. They say he's anonymous, but usually when they say it's anonymous, that means it's the U.S. government, so or part of its division. So consumer sentiment is at an all-time low right now, even lower than during the last financial crisis of 2008. Where do you
Hmm.
see the U.S. economy in the next 3 years, considering the fact credit card debt is up, car loan defaults are on the rise, foreclosures are up, and people are losing their jobs to AI?
This is an easy answer. It's crashing. It's been crashing. Everything will be measured in gold. People don't have any money. The delinquencies are obvious. I mean, the economy's crashing, and it's going to be a worldwide global depression. I've said that since I wrote my book in 2009. Worldwide global depression is here, and whether it's this year, next year, or year out, it doesn't matter. And mathematically, you can't stop it. So we're past the point of no return. That came out in 2009. Kenneth Rogoff and Reinhardt, who wrote that book, in per history, there's no recovering. And it's not just gonna be the US, it's gonna be the whole world. The economy's shot, money's shot. That's it, period. End of story. And I had this discussion with a guy that followed me on social media, and we had a phone call. And he kept trying to save the system. And I kept trying to tell him, the system's gone. It's broken right now. All you can do is prepare yourself and speak up about what you want, prepare yourself by taking the right steps and survive the transition, and try to, using education and legal means, keep the government from implementing CBDCs. I would rather have a crash and us all go through tough times for a few years and then come back out with sound money
Yeah.
instead of going through a crash and everybody running to the government to give programmable currency and your freedom is over forever. That's a worse system. So, I mean, the economy's dead. It's over. It's toast. It's not savable. All they can do is print more money to extinguish the debt through inflation, and then that just destroys everybody's purchasing power anymore. Mathematically, there's no way out. Never has been in history, won't be this time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So you mentioned your book a few times. Can you tell
Hmm.
the audience the title of the book and how they can get a hold of it?
Yeah, it's called Drop Shadow: The Truth About the Economy and How You Can Survive the Coming Economic Collapse. I wrote in 2009 and published in the beginning of 2010. And it's an older book, but it's fun to go. You can get on Amazon, and it's fun to go read because it's an easy read. I wrote it as a tabletop, and there's a lot of data in it. I wrote it so you didn't have to be an economist to understand it. And now the value of the book is if you go read it, did my predictions come true? Did what I say came true? Was it predictable using Austrian economics and data? Go read the book and decide for yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely great. So I'm going to take the time now to share the screen to show the audience your YouTube channel, which I
Hmm.
definitely think it's a great idea for everyone watching this video to subscribe to your channel. And you can also buy his shirts and hoodie on his store. That's
Hmm.
a great way you can support his channel. And he makes some really great videos on a whole bunch of different topics like gold and silver, the digital ID, and many other topics. And you can also follow Robert on Twitter and also Citizens for Sound Money. Here's that website. So you can check out what he's doing there with Citizens for Sound Money. Is there anything you would like to say about your Freedom Report, Robert? And anything else you'd like to cover in this video?
No, I think that about sums it up. I think we covered it. The main thing for people to know is just get out there, be active. One, educate yourself and prepare, and then go tell your legislators what you want and don't want, and try to band together people of like mind, and just know that whatever is coming, come and just prepare for it. Do the best you can, and that's it. I mean, that's the stage we're at. We're at the final death throes of the economy. So, what we don't want to happen is through crisis we get a worse system. I mean, we're all going to go through some economic pain. If you're preparing for it, you'll survive through it. And the key is not to panic and to let the government take control. That's what we don't want. Because when the technocrats take control throughout human history, that doesn't help us. Let's put it that way. None of us wants that. So if you're prepared and educated, it'll be less pain. Plus, you'll have the ability to kind of focus on the crisis and provide real world solutions, sound many alternatives, and not have to run to the government to save us, because the price of that is going to be the loss of human freedom, I'm afraid, and that, that's what we want to avoid.
I definitely agree. And just everyone, please subscribe to his channel. And I'd really like to thank you, Robert, for being on the show with us today.
Appreciate you. Thank you for the interview. Good luck on your channel. It's good to see people from your generation and younger people looking at this. I think your generation is facing the worst part of it at a younger age, and so your generation probably is actually more aware than some of the older generations. And I appreciate you having the courage to come on here and do this and educate people and become a part of it. And I do think that your generation is going to come up with a lot of good solutions, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I definitely hope so. All we can do is keep trucking along and spreading the word. So, yeah,
Yep.
I'd definitely like to have you on again. And just like to thank the audience for watching the video. Please subscribe, and I hope everyone has a good day.
Awesome. Thank you.